All right, looks like we are live. Welcome to Standing for Truth. My name is Donnie B, and I am your host and moderator for tonight's epic 2 versus 1 debate between Dr. Kent Hovind and the evolutionist side for tonight, Luca Medugno and James W. This is a continuation in our 2022 Evolution Debate Challenge series. As a matter of fact, this is debate number 43 in this prolific series. James W. and Luca have both taken the challenge and debated a couple times at least this year. And so I'm looking forward to having them both here for a 2-on-1. And before we get right into the fun, let's kind of break the ice. And for anybody who's not familiar with the debaters tonight, get to know you gentlemen just really, really quick. Brief introductions. Luca, let's start with you. You are with us all the way from Italy. Yes. I appreciate it. A little bit about yourself.
Yes, I'm an atheist. I've been there in this channel for quite some time. I work as a teacher for quite some years now, and I have a background in chemistry. I love doing this kind of debates, and I cannot wait for tonight. I will bring up some old slides, and some of them are never been seen in this channel before, so I hope that will be fun.
Awesome, thank you, Luca. I'll make sure that your link to your channel is in the description box, both of you, James and Luca. James, good to have you back as well. A little bit about yourself, a little bit about your channel for the audience.
Well, hi guys, my name is James. I am a atheist apologist, if you will. I am a former Christian. I was raised in the Baptist church, but became an atheist in approximately 2014. I turned my life over to faith to reason and evidence, and I decided that faith wasn't a reliable gauge to ascertain truth. And so I co-host a channel on the Amy Newman channel with my co-host, and we do fun episodes. We do an atheist Bible study, and we take a look at all the hard-hitting issues of the day. We just did a show last night telling you why the end times is not going to happen. Don't worry about it. Nothing to worry about. Nothing's going to happen.
Okay, James, thank you for that introduction. And Luca and James, good to have you both here. Kent, good to have you back as well, brother. Quick intro, a little bit about yourself, and how's everything going on over at Dow?
Well, thank you, sir. I've been a Baptist preacher 48 years. I taught high school science and math 15 years. And we have Dinosaur Adventureland in Lenox, Alabama, straight north of Pensacola, 70 miles. We have visitors come from all over the world, including Italy. A couple that came from Italy in the last couple weeks, I think. Anyway, everybody loves it here. It's all about science and the Bible. We believe the Bible is true, and end times are coming like a freight train. You're going to see some great changes, James. Hope you get ready for it. Anyway, so yeah, I look forward to the debate. We believe the Bible is true, and evolution is the dumbest and most dangerous religious cult in the history of the world. It's a religion, and it's a cult. There's no scientific evidence for evolution. I'd like to see what these guys have tonight, so bring it on.
All right. Thank you very much there, Kent, for your introduction. And with introductions out of the way, I will briefly go over the format for tonight. It is going to be a little more laid back and easy going. We'll have the evolutionist side take 10 minutes, and they can break that 10 minutes up however they please. They'll present some opening arguments. Then we'll give Kent equal time, 10 minutes. And then we'll just have a free-flowing discussion where we can address and engage each point one by one, keeping it, of course, one topic at a time. So James W., Luca, I'm going to hand you, gentlemen, the floor, but I do want to remind the audience to please just make sure you're tagging me at Standing for Truth with your questions. We usually have a pretty lively chat during these evolution debates, and so I don't want to miss your question. Just tag me. I'll save it, and we'll have an audience Q&A after the discussion portion. So, Luca, James, we're going to hand you the floor. Luca, I understand you're going to be starting us off anyways. So I'll start the timer, and whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'll try to share some slides. That's quite new for me, but I'll try.
No problem.
Okay. Okay, you can see my screen. Okay.
There you go. You didn't even need my help. You're good to go, Luca.
Okay. So, this is my basically oldest presentation, and that was a presentation for Kent. And I want to bring up wheat, and for a reason. We do know where wheat come from acorn. Remember that this plant is still able to do hybrids with these different species of plants, and there is quite an important characteristic with acorn and with after. So when we start with acorn, we have a diploid species. So with 14 chromosomes. And we do know that wheat, as we know now, is a allohexaploid species, meaning that has basically 3 times the number of chromosomes. And we also know the kind of genetic material inside the plant. So we do know that inside wheat we have basically all the genome of acorn and other 2 species of plants. That's a result of hybridization, and it's still an evolutionary process, but not mutation, of course. And here you have the table with the comparison from the original species, basically acorn, and the common wheat now. Now, I want to bring up my second point, and that's new. Nobody ever seen these slides because my last debate with Ken had some technical problem. So, evolution of multicellularity. I'm here to ask Ken some question. We did discuss this topic last time, but I want to show the paper anyway. That's the paper. If anyone want to see, this paper is very, very good. I think it's very a very good topic to study. And here you can see that's a real case of multicellularity. As you can see, it was shown after 750 generation, and it's still there after several years. And Kent asked me to respond because he did bring up a paper, and I do have some criticism about this paper. Why? I think that they missed the point. They tried to infer that it was not really evolution, and it's not really credible in my humble opinion, because this species of algae is still there after several years, even without the predator. So no longer it's no longer needed to be multicellular. The other point was to infer that it was a case of devolution, that this algae is a result of a devolution and then a restoration of a trait already present. But it does not hold water. Why? Because we have, as you can see there, several occasions of evolution of multicellularity in this same experiment. So if it's a case of devolution and then evolution, why we do see at least 3 different cases in this experiment? It does not hold water. And I hold my time.
All right, thank you, Luca. Just over 5 minutes, which means we've got roughly 5 minutes left. James W., let's hand it over to you. Use as much of it as you'd like to, and then we'll go from there. So, floor is yours.
Well, guys, so I just got notice today about the debate, so I haven't had really a whole lot of time to prepare a formal opening. But this is round 4 that I've had with Kent, so he should be pretty familiar with my arguments. And what Luca was pointing out here, the emergence of multicellularity that has been demonstrated in the laboratory, and Kent's been told about this several times, and as Snake was right, pointed out to him, each time he just says it's the algae experiment. He just says it's a colony. When he's told why it's not, he says he'll look into it, but he never looks into it. He just keeps saying, I'll look into it. I'll look into it. No, it's still not a colony. It's still the emergence of multicellularity from single cellularity. And the thing about that is it's called proof of concept. If it can happen one time in a laboratory, then given an entire planet, given millions of years, we have the millions of years, we do, then it can happen in nature. And that seems to be the fundamental story of life on Earth, that all life emerged from a Luca, the last universal common ancestor. We could see this through homology between different species of animals on Earth. You can nest these into hierarchies. You can see how animal life on Earth has changed over time, which, by the way, all of it's encoded in the rocks, in the fossil record. You have a literal history of life on Earth preserved in the rocks. I know he doesn't like it. I know he talks about this flood that apparently he thinks sorted everything this way. He's got no evidence of it, and we like to call that a baseless assertion. He's just asserting things like he does with the ERVs. He just asserts God did it that way. Well, doesn't have any reason for that. He doesn't have any evidence to show that, but God could do anything, right? So, hey, it's important to realize when you're looking at homology of organisms, a designer could design each animal so that it would be clear that nothing was related to each other. He could have done it that way. And yes, he could still make it so that the animals could eat each other. He has infinite power. He could have clearly made each animal clearly distinct, clearly separate from the others, but he didn't do that. He made it look like everything's related. Was he trying to be deceptive? Was he setting up the great delusion so that he can deceive people, make people believe a lie, and then go back and punish them for believing the lie? It's bizarre. But evolution could never do that. Evolution can only work with what it has, and there's no goal in evolution. It's not trying to do anything. It's a force of nature. It's the story of life on Earth. It's recorded in the rocks, and notwithstanding that, all Kent really has on his side is Iron Age, Bronze Age fables written by people who thought the world was flat and knew next to nothing about anything. The stuff that Luca presented, that's actual modern science, and it can be a little technical. It could be a little harder for some people to grasp. It's a little more complicated than God just did it, or God piled up dirt and he blew on it and man arose, or God took a rib out and made a woman out of it. How that any of that works, I don't know. Why he would even need to do any of that, I don't know. It's obviously a story that man made up when man knew nothing, but we actually know a lot more than nothing today. And that kind of is hard on a literal interpretation of the Bible. It's no problem for Christians who have a more liberal, a more metaphorical interpretation of the Bible. And we are winning on that field. There are millions of Christians who accept evolution. There are dozens of Christian denominations that fully affirm the validity of members of the LGBT community. They have no problem with them. They read in the Bible where God says that's bad. They promptly ignore it and treat their brother and sister better than their God would have them do it. But you will not see young earth creationism taught in any accredited academic institution anywhere outside the mythology department. Now, let that sink in about who's winning this battle. Thank you.
Okay, that's 10 minutes on the dot. That concludes the opening comments from the evolutionist side tonight, James W. and Luca Medugno. So we are now going to hand it over to Kent. Kent, whenever you're ready, you also have 10 minutes, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. I brought up about 9 topics there. So, okay, let's see there. Okay. The word evolution has many different meanings. We need to define what we talk about, what we mean when we say the word evolution. Cosmic evolution, the origin of time, space, matter. The evolutionists claim that happened with the Big Bang. Well, what was before the Big Bang, and what banged, and where did the energy come from? Where did the material come from? Where did space come from? Where did time come from? Who created time? Anyway, that's another long story. The chemical evolution had to happen. All the elements had to form from hydrogen. I'd like to see you make gold from hydrogen, lithium, or any of the small earlier elements in the periodic table. Then you'd have to have the stars evolve and the planets. We'll go bypass all that tonight, but they never answer that. They have a story, but not a scientific evidence, okay? Organic evolution. But tonight's supposed to be macroevolution, not LGBT, okay? And not whether young earth creation is taught in accredited universities or not. I bet there aren't any courses taught against Islam in Muslim universities either, okay? Macroevolution, changing from one kind to another. Has that ever happened? Define macroevolution. I Googled this today. Evolution that results in relatively large and complex changes, as in species formation. Webster's Dictionary, okay? What is macroevolution? The origin of a new higher group, such as the mammals, would be an example of macroevolutionary event, okay? Show it to me. Where does it happen? What's the best example of macroevolution? Oh, let's see. Okay. Tetrapods, which are animals with 4 limbs. Now, I agree with that. Tetra means 4, okay? Evidence of macroevolution is obtained through the study of fossils. Hold it. I say, no, guys, stop and think. No fossil would count as evidence for evolution. When you find fossils, you don't know that it had any children. You couldn't prove it had any children that lived, and you couldn't prove it had any children that were different. No animal today can produce children that are different than themselves. Cows produce cows. Dogs produce dogs every time. Why would you think a bone you found in the dirt could do something that no animal today can do? That's a religion. You believe it. It's not science, okay? Not observable. Geologic data, is that you want me to believe the layers of the earth are different ages? They say the top layer is younger. I keep asking, where's it coming from? Outer space? What do you mean the top layer is younger? No, it's not. There's no such thing as a geologic column. If I shuffle a deck of cards, is the top card younger? No. But they think because the layer's on top, therefore it's younger. This is so immature, childish. No, the layers all formed rapidly in one big flood in the days of Noah. If there's any sorting to the fossils, it's hydrologic sorting, or sorting based upon their intelligence, or based upon their habitat. Clams are found at the bottom because clams already live at the bottom. Of course, they're buried first. Birds are found on top because they're the last ones to die. Doesn't have anything to do with evolution. There's lots of other explanations, logical explanations for the order of fossils, and they're not in the order they want them always to be. Okay. Then they say we can study modern organisms, and that's evidence for macroevolution? Really? Microevolution says the dog, the wolf, the coyote, all the dogs had a common ancestor. I agree with that. Probably true. Macroevolution says an amoeba turned to a human. That's not only stupid, it's a religious idea. You have to believe in that. It's not science. Nobody ever sees that. Macroevolution, Google today. Let's see. The origin of mammals. Oh, so mutations happen. They're harmful, fatal, or neutral. Gene flow, genetic drift, natural selection, plus 3.8 billion years equals macroevolution. Oh, so there's your magic wand. You wave billions of years over it, poof, and it happened. Magic wand. Yep, give it a kiss, and the frog will turn into a prince. Oh, yeah, you guys are fairy tale believers, okay? Macroevolution. The evidence comes from two main sources, fossils, which is baloney. No fossils could count, and comparisons between living organisms. How could, neither of those are evidence for macroevolution. How could you compare living organisms and say, look, this proves evolution? This crazy lady here said we have got proof for evolution because the western meadowlark is different than the eastern meadowlark. All three in the picture have a bird brain. Evidence of evolution, macroevolution, geographic isolation. That happens. Sometimes animals are isolated. They can't get back and mate with the population, like Darwin's finches. It's still a finch. Reproductive isolation. That happens. I agree. Fossil record. That's not evidence for evolution. It's evidence something died. No fossils are forming today in any record, any number that we know of. How many animals died in the last week in the world? Hundreds of millions? How many are going to fossilize? None. Fossilization requires rapid burial, exactly like Noah's flood would do. I believe the flood formed nearly every fossil in the world in 1 year. Homologous structures. We got similar structures, 2 bones in your forearm, and the bird has 2 in his, and the different animals have 2. That's proof for evolution? No, that's proof of a common designer. Analogous structures, genetic similarities. Again, same person wrote the code. His name is God. Has macroevolution been observed? I typed in. Oh, yeah, look at this. They drew lines on paper connecting the mammals and the amphibians and the lungfish and the sharks. Well, if you've got a line on paper connecting humans and sharks, that's proof of something. That's proof you got a pencil and a pen, or a pen and a ruler. That's all it's proof of. Drawing a line on paper does not mean there's evidence that this happened, okay? Homologous, homo means the same. Homologous structures provide evidence of divergent evolution. No, it does not. Stop lying to the kids. If there's a similar structure in a wing of a different animal, a bat and a bird and an insect, that's what's required to fly through the air. It's a neat design. I bet the Boeing 747 has a lot of similarities to the Cessna 150. Yeah. And neither was evolved from the other. They both were designed to do what they do, okay? Analogous structures, convergent evolution. No matter what happens, they call it evidence for evolution. I would like to see it happen, guys. You talk about the fossils being evidence. Show it to me today. Why could they do it then, but they can't do it now? The strongest evidence is fossil record. Well, then you don't have any evidence at all. No fossils count. Fossils are evidence of a rapid burial like Noah's flood would do. Order of fossils in sediments, that's baloney. First place, they're not in that order, every place that they would like them to be: fish, amphibian, reptile, mammal. Secondly, if they were, the order of burial could be because of hydrologic sorting, could be because of habitat, could be because of intelligence. Clams aren't too smart. Could be because of body density. Clams are a little more dense than birds. There's all kinds of things that would sort animals in the layers besides millions of years of evolution. Oldest at the bottom, that is just pure baloney. Okay, go to experiments in stratification. The video the French guy did in Colorado Springs at the Navy laboratory there, where they do sedimentation testing. He shows that the layers form horizontally. If the tide's going up and down in Noah's flood, the water's also rushing in and out of that bump. Every 6 hours, 12.5 minutes, there's a tidal change. So the water comes up, the tide rushes in. Water goes down, tide rushes out. That's going to be horizontal movement of the water, forming thousands of layers in 1 year. The Bible says they'll always bring forth after their kind, after their kind, after their kind. It's all through the scriptures, a whole bunch of times in there. How many kinds of cows are there? 400 varieties of cows. Might have had a common ancestor called a cow. How many kinds of dogs? 339 breeds of dogs. Might have had a common ancestor. How many kinds of bananas? 1,000 types of bananas. Well, 60 different types of eagles. Wow, who'd have thunk it? How many kinds of oak trees are there? 600 species of oak tree. Might have come from an oak tree. It doesn't prove an oak and an eagle are related. See, in you guys' mind, because we see varieties of oak trees, therefore oaks are related to eagles. This is silly, real silly. Grow up and think about it, okay? How many kinds of bears are there? 8 species of bears. Wow, look at that. 30,000 varieties of wheat. Luca, 30,000 varieties of wheat. 6 different classes grown in the United States. All the different kinds of wheat might have had a common ancestor called wheat. Show me where wheat ever produced anything other than wheat. And most of the varieties of wheat that they've developed wouldn't survive without somebody babysitting the field, and because the plants are weaker. They may produce more berries and more wheat, but you got to babysit the plant. It's not in nature, it wouldn't survive. Most of the varieties wouldn't survive. So you guys who think macroevolution is micro over longer periods of time, that's dreaming. Even an evolutionist said that years ago, 40 years ago. He said, can microevolution be extrapolated to explain phenomena of macro? The answer can be given as a clear no. Microevolution, variations within the wheat happen. Do you believe, Luca or James, that you are related to wheat? Just a simple yes or no later on. Bring it up anytime you like. Are you related to wheat? Professor Dave's related to a strawberry. One guy debated is related to a snail. Yeah. Are you related to wheat? Just answer yes or no. All right. Time's up. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Thank you, Kent, for that opening statement. All right, gentlemen, we got opening comments from both sides tonight, the creationist and the evolutionist side. We've got quite a few interesting points and topics on the table. So let's try and discuss each one of those one at a time. And we'll try and keep it as equally timed as possible. So as the discussion is taking place, to the audience, you're doing a fantastic job tagging me with your questions. Let's keep it on topic tonight, macroevolution specifically. Also to the debaters, we'll try to do our best to keep it on topic as well, macroevolution. So, all right, we'll hand it to the evolutionist side to pick the first topic or point and first question to kick us off in the discussion. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Okay, James, can I go first? Okay, so my point is quite simple, and I'm glad to be able to do it. Kent was asking for showing him to something that can wheat that was not wheat. We can do that. As I said, wheat is the product of 2 separate events, 2 hybridizations, and we can still do it. We can pick up these plants. One is the acorn, the other one is a wild goat grass plant, and the other one is a very complex name, Latin name. I can show it on screen if needed, but it's a completely different plant, and we can still do it. And we can pick up a wild goat grass plant and acorn and get something that is nether of them. And that's a new plant. And then you can pick the third plant and get a wheat. That's a different thing entirely. And that's a better plant. That's a stronger plant. So I cannot see why that will not qualified as evolution. I leave to James.
Okay, let's stop right there. So we got that one topic on the table. Appreciate it, Luca. Wheat specifically. Let's hand it to Kent for a response. Kent, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Well, Lucas, you took from something similar to a grass, which has seeds on top of the head of the plant, and over time have developed it into wheat, which still has the seeds on top. It's still a plant. Has anybody ever seen this wheat produce anything other than the 30,000 varieties of wheat? Have they ever seen it turn into any kind of animal? Is this variation within the wheat that we've observed over history enough to convince you that you are related to wheat?
Oh, Luca, just make sure to. Oh, you're good. Yeah, just make sure to unmute yourself.
Maybe James wants to see something. How does that work? Sorry.
Are we related to wheat? Yeah. I mean, Kent, plants and animals diverged billions of years ago. So no, we can't turn into an animal today. That bus left a long time ago. That's not how this works, and I think you know that, Kent. You've debated this hundreds of times. You have your doctorate degree. No, that's not what happens in evolution. All we're saying is that these changes can accumulate over time. Just like, Kent, when you get in your car and you drive down to the mailbox to get your mail, well, you can take that same car and you drive it a little bit further. You can go into town. You drive it a little further, you're in another town. If you keep driving, you'll be in another state. At no point did you have to fly. At no point did you do anything else other than the same way you drive to the mailbox, rolling your tires. It's really that simple. And we do have the time, and we do have the animals sorted in the layers. I mean, isn't it funny that all these layers are hydrologically sorted, just the way that evolution says it evolved? It seems like a pretty good sequence. It seems almost cruel of God to have the animals sorted that way. And then, of course, that's confirmed by radiometric dating, which also goes back and confirms the order that life evolved in. But yes, we are wheat. We're related to wheat.
Well, good. Oh, my turn. So James is related to wheat. Certainly the kids are taught this
and
in
a ladybug.
School. And a ladybug. Okay, good.
You asked that. That was last time you asked a ladybug.
Okay, so you're related to a ladybug and
a ladybug
wheat. That's
and
good
wheat,
to know.
yes.
And a bird. Okay, look at this. They got a line between human and bird and dinosaurs. Whoa. And ladybug. And there's the plants. Yep, they were all going back with the worms to a common ancestor. This is not observable science. I can observe driving to the mailbox, and I can observe driving to a different state. I was in Miami a couple of days ago. Okay, that you can do that, no question. But we don't observe this happening. They drew lines on paper connecting them. This is not science. Nobody's ever seen an amoeba produce a non-amoeba. But you guys have an amoeba turning into wheat and into humans and into birds and reptiles. This is a religious belief. I wish you've been told this many times, James. I wish you would see it and admit it. You have a religion of evolution, which is fine. Believe whatever you want, but it's not part of science. Science, the definition is knowledge gained by observation, experimentation, and testing. Where's the experiment to turn an amoeba into a ladybug or a human? All you have is imagination, SpongeBob style. Well, if we had time, and you keep saying we have the time. No, you don't. There's lots of ways to prove the Earth cannot be billions of years old, but billions of years won't help you. You think that solves the problem. That's your magic wand. Wave billions of years over it. Wow, amoeba turns to wheat and humans. I think I could demonstrate scientifically the Earth cannot be billions of years old. That's a debate for another night. I believe very strongly it can't be billions of years old for scientific reasons. Time isn't going to help. Everything we've observed gets worse with time. Everything falls apart, degrades, degenerates. It doesn't get better. You guys, I applaud you for your great faith, but you have a religion is all you have. Nobody's ever seen wheat come from non-wheat or produce anything that's non-wheat. We certainly don't see humans and wheat related, like you guys said. You said you have the time. I disagree. And you say we don't see it happen because it happened a long time ago. Well, then it's not observable science. If it could happen on accident back then, why can't they make it happen on purpose today in the laboratory? Get a bunch of amoebas and turn them into anything other than an amoeba. They've already tried. Every 8 hours you get a new generation. Somebody fix that dog, would you? Okay. So what happened here? Where's the evidence for any animal producing a different kind? They draw lines on paper, and that is just pure religious belief. This is not part of science. This is dumb. And you're welcome to believe it, that you're related to wheat. Here they got the shark and the plants, the ferns, and going back to the octopus and the origin of life. Here they have the protozoa turning to the biology teacher. And plants will be in there too somewhere. You guys believe this. I know you believe it. And I know you think it ought to be taught to everybody. It's very important to believe. First place, it's a religion, you believe it. And it's a useless religion. It doesn't do any good for anybody. Nobody in the world uses this evolution theory when they're doing surgery trying to sew somebody up. They need to know their anatomy, not evolution. Go ahead.
Okay, we'll hand it back to the evolutionist side, gentlemen. Since there's two of you, take equal time and feel free to respond. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Luca.
Okay, so I would say that I'm quite happy because Kent said there that yes, we can show that wheat can come from something like the acorn and plants like that. We can show that, but it's still a plant. Still, it has seeds. Yes, it's true. It's incredible. But if we are talking about evolution to the level of kingdom, because that's what it is, I will be almost content with that. Yeah. Maybe we cannot show that we are not plants and we are not related to plants, but we can show that plants can evolve and to a very high degree. But we can do even better. We can talk about what the difference from us and plants. What's the difference? What the difference between us and things like prokaryotes and eukaryotes. I live with James to expand this kind of topics and questions, but I would love to discuss.
Oh, James, let me just unmute you. Actually, on your end, you'll have to unmute.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Once again, he's just baselessly asserting that it's a designer, and that takes no work. That is how much work does it take to do that? To look at the what science is finding out and the discoveries that they're making, and just say, oh well, God just did it that way because he just did it that way. I mean, we can tell there's things about the natural world that we can learn that we cannot directly observe and no, that doesn't make it a religion. Looking at the evidence that we see on Earth today and making some very reasonable assumptions and applying that with what we know about the world with physics and coming up with a narrative is not religion. Just because we don't know something with absolute certainty, we're not required to do that. This is not a court of law. We're just trying to figure out what is most reasonable and what most likely happened. And the only reason you would object to it, the only reason you would have an issue with it is if you have a predetermined belief that contradicts it, which is exactly where Kent is coming with this. He's got a pre-selected belief that this can't be true. So it doesn't matter to him what the evidence shows, because he's got to find a way to say why it doesn't apply or why it doesn't count, because he's already made up his mind. Whereas the science is just looking at the evidence, looking at the data, looking and trying to figure out what is most reasonable. Do we assume that there's this that the war god of the ancient Hebrews is responsible for all this because we like the idea of living forever, or do we use naturalism to determine truths about the natural world, which has been fiercely successful, where religion has constantly failed? This is science; it's not religion, Ken.
Okay, thank you, Luca and James. Now we'll hand it back to Kent. Kent, go ahead.
Well, James, you said, believing there's a designer requires no work. I think believing this ink pen had a designer would be, it's intuitive. It's obvious. There was a designer. I don't know who he was. I don't care. But there was one. Okay. So, but you see, here's the difference. You believe strongly there's no designer. It all happened by chance. But you believe it happened long ago and far away where we can't see it. Okay. That's your belief. I have a different belief. I believe somebody designed everything. But you want to make everybody pay for your religion to be taught to the schools. I would not object at all if all you atheists started private schools and teach evolution at your expense to your kids. Whoever wants to pay and come learn it can come learn it. No, no, no. You want to force everybody to pay to have your religion taught. And that's not fair. It's not good. And I'm not going to shut up about it. I'm going to keep producing videos. And if I die, my videos are going to go viral worldwide. Wow, Hovind died. Everybody spread these videos around. I think the world needs to know what you have is a belief system. You believe very strongly you're related to a strawberry and a ladybug and an amoeba. And a wheat. Yes, you're related to wheat. Okay. I don't believe that at all. You do. That's your belief. You cannot demonstrate that in the laboratory. You could never find any animal or plant that would turn into anything other than the same kind. What Luca has demonstrated is we now have 30,000 varieties of wheat in the world, and they're still wheat. Turn it into something else. Turn it in just to an oak tree or a pine tree. Still in the plant family. It's still wheat. There's a lot of varieties of dogs. They might have had a common ancestor called a dog. That's as far as it goes. It's not a family tree where everything's connected. It's an orchard where all the dogs are on one tree, all the bananas are on a different tree. 1,000 kinds of bananas had a common ancestor, which was a banana. That doesn't prove it goes any deeper than that down that family tree, and the banana and the dog are connected. It's simply not science. I wish you guys could see that it's something you believe in. That's fine. Believe whatever you want. But to connect the humans and the birds and the reptiles and the ladybugs and the plants, this is propaganda. This is I think it's criminal. You're lying to the kids. You don't have any evidence for these lines they drew on the paper. And that's the purpose of this debate. Where's the evidence for macroevolution? You guys want to divert it onto everything else through, let's see, the multicellularity or LGBT, like that's got something to do with it. Where's the evidence of any animal or plant producing something other than its kind? I showed you there's 1,000 kinds of bananas and 400 kinds of cows and 8 species of bears. Where's the evidence of any bear producing a non-bear or coming from a non-bear? Or the 600 kinds of oak trees. They've always made oak trees. We've got a bunch on our property. They always produce acorns. You stick them in the ground, they grow another oak tree, without exception. But you believe the oak trees are related to the frogs. You got that on your chart here. This isn't science, that's all. It's propaganda. That's all it is. And you guys have swallowed it. And I feel sorry for you. Go ahead.
Okay, gentlemen, I want the evolutionist side to respond however they'd like to, but I do understand that, Luca, you had some slides in your opening presentation and you did bring up several interesting points. So I'm not sure if you wanted to, move it into the direction of an additional point or however you guys want to respond. Go ahead.
Yes, I would love to discuss a little about something that can link to the next point. If it's okay with you. Kent, you ask a lot of good questions, I think. How we can infer that we are related to things like plants? First of all, we have the difference between a us and the plants. What's the difference at the level of the cell? The difference is a little, very little structure, the chloroplast. And that's a very interesting thing. What's a chloroplast? It's very, very similar to a mitochondria. It has a different kind of DNA from the nuclear DNA, and that's quite a strange thing, is it not? How it's possible that we have two different kinds of DNA in a cell? A ring one, a much more simple one on the chloroplast and the mitochondria, and a much complex DNA in the nucleus. Why we have this difference? And then we can observe something like a salamander getting in a bacteria more or less big as a mitochondria inside their cell and starting to do photosynthesis. So we have some proof, and then we can observe how we observe those differences inside those structures. Mitochondria and chloroplasts have a different membrane than the cell. They are similar to a bacteria. And we did observe cell absorbing those kind of organisms. So I want to know your points, and then maybe we can go to multicellularity. But of course, I want to know a little about what James think about these things.
Actually, before we do hand it to James, let's just give Kent a chance to respond to those couple arguments, and then we'll hand it back to James after that. Go ahead, Kent.
Okay, the DNA code that we have and that wheat has and that strawberries and ladybugs have is mind-boggling in its complexity. They've estimated that one teaspoon of DNA has enough computing power to hold all of everything man has ever done, every letter ever written, every movie ever made, all the code generated by humans in all of its history would fit into a spoonful of DNA. The DNA code is mind-boggling in its complexity. It's a 4-dimensional code. Do you really believe it happened by chance? Who wrote that code? If there are similarities in the code, and there are, no question, as far as we can tell by looking at them, that doesn't prove any relationship. I bet there's I've got thousands of books here in my library. I bet all of them use the same 26 letters of the alphabet, because maybe a few exceptions, but I think they're all written in English. What does that prove? That's the code with which you write English, 26 letters. That's the code you use to write the English language. So the fact that there are similarities in the code of DNA between wheat and humans is not evidence of a relationship. It's the same person writing the code, or the code is being used, whoever designed it, if it's God or whatever, doesn't matter. It's a code with which you write. Microsoft PowerPoint has thousands of identical lines of code to Microsoft Word. 2 different programs, thousands of identical lines of code. When you go to spell check on PowerPoint, it takes you to the same dictionary, same lines of code as when you do spell check on Microsoft Word. Yeah? That's not proof they evolved from Morse code. That's proof that the same people are writing the code. So the similarities of DNA code in a court of law, you guys would lose in 10 seconds. That's not evidence we're related. It's evidence of a designer. The code is so complicated, mind-boggling in its complexity. I think I watched my video from a couple nights ago on Kent Hovind Official about making babies, where I talked about the tardigrade and the code of the tardigrade. If you unwound it and stretched it out, each chromosome is 6 feet long. It would reach from here to the sun and back 61 times, I believe, is what they said. You can't possibly believe it happened by chance and still be sane. I don't understand it. Go ahead, James. Let's hear it.
Well, we'll help you understand it, Ken. I think you understand it a little bit more than you're letting on. But be that as it may, anytime any of these has ever gone to a court of law, the court of law is always sided with evolution being science and creationism or intelligent design being religious. I know you're going to say, well, that's not an honest court of law, because if they make that ruling, they're not honest. Okay, all right, whatever. But Kent, the problem with the designer hypothesis, every single designer that has ever been proposed is full of problems. They're Christianity, Islam, they're all full of internal contradictions and issues for any of these proposed designers. The only way you would get to that is if you just decided there has to be one, so I got to pick the one I like the best. But that's not science. That's religion. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about trying to, as objectively as possible, look at the natural world and try to figure out what's going on. And I mean, human authors are limited to languages they speak because we're limited creatures. We are not all-knowing, all-powerful, all-wise the way your God would be. He wouldn't be limited by these constraints that we are limited to. He could have clearly made it manifestly obvious that all these animals are distinctly related. Instead, he chose to do it in a way that makes it kind of look like they are all related, which is kind of deceptive if you're looking at it from our perspective, because it looks like everything is related. I saw you do a stream the other day where it was that same stream where you talked about animal reproduction and everything. We won't go into that, but you were also looking at hair worms and giving God the glory for his amazing creation. And you were asking for feedback on that. Of course, anybody who might give you that can't post to the channel. But, I mean, if you want to give God glory for the hair worms, okay, give God glory for the hair worms. But this is... that's a religious way of looking at it. And that doesn't conflict with evolution, by the way. There are millions of Christians who are fine with evolution. It doesn't bother them. It has nothing. They can give God the glory for hair worms and still accept what science tells us about reality. You don't have to adopt this fringe view that uber biblical literalism is the only way to look at things, which obviously there are people who don't look at it that way. And they do great science, and you could too.
Okay, thank you, James, for the response. Kent, over to you.
I can't find the one I did on hair worms, but James, I am thrilled to know that you're watching my videos. It boosts our numbers. Okay, we don't advertise, so we don't care about the finances and that, but we do want to get the message out. So keep watching. Maybe you'll get converted one day. I did one on the tardigrade. How could you possibly believe this evolved? This critter is extremely tiny, and it has the ability to withstand things that it never has encountered. How did it develop the ability to withstand 300 degrees? It's never encountered 300 degrees. They sent tardigrades into space. Real tiny critter, millimeter long, okay? It has unbelievable capacity for things. It can down to 459 Fahrenheit, below minus 459, just a half a degree off of absolute zero, and it survives. So anyway, we could talk about creatures, how they can survive, but the purpose of this debate tonight is for you guys to provide where's the evidence for evolution. I believe there is none. I don't believe you've presented any. You said it happened long ago and far away. Oh, stop right there, Your Honor. I object. He's not giving the evidence. He's claiming it happened long ago and far away. That's not evidence. Where's the scientific evidence of anybody's ever seen a macroevolutionary event where something changed to something else? All Luca provided was wheat turned into wheat. We now have a whole bunch of different kinds of wheat. Yay, great. Still wheat. That's not proof you're related to wheat, that elephants are related to wheat. That you guys just don't get it. All you've given is a story, a fairy tale. You believe it happened. Okay. And a lot of people believe it happened. Okay, you might convince everybody that it happened. That doesn't make it true. Science doesn't deal with majority opinion. Science deals with what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. What we've observed all through history is dogs produce dogs. Nobody's ever seen anything else. Have you? Has any scientist in the laboratory ever seen anything other than dog? Here, I found it. Yay. DNA replication. Okay. Slide number 34. DV 34. The DNA, the deoxyribonucleic acid, is so complex If you think it happened by chance, you are absolutely certifiably insane. This had to have a designer. The length of the DNA stretched out 4 million base pairs on just E. coli, a little bitty bacteria. And the code is just stunning. And I don't know how you can't give God the glory. Your knee will bend one day, and you will bow before the Lord. I hate to see that happen to you the hard way, but I believe the DNA code is unexplainable without a designer. I don't think it's possible to get a page in any book. I don't think it's possible for these letters to be arranged themselves in this order with trillions of years of random chance and shuffling the letters and throwing them on the paper. You'll never get this page, let alone the whole book. It won't happen. You can believe it if you want, but that's not science. That's why I say, and I will continue to say, it's a religion, and it's the dumbest religion in the world to believe you are related to wheat. Now, I think you have evidence for that. Oh, okay. I'd like to see it. That's the purpose of the debate. Where is the evidence of any animal ever producing a different kind of offspring? The wheat makes wheat, Luca. That's all it's ever done. Turn the wheat into a tree. Turn it into a mouse, a hamster, anything other than wheat. I'd bet you $1,000 if you plant wheat seeds, if anything grows, it'll be wheat. You want to take me up on that? Go ahead.
Okay. So I was thinking about changing a little bit the subject. I think that we are not going anywhere here. My point were different, but let's discuss a little bit about multicellularity because it's very important to me. It came from my last debate with Kent, and I have some questions. If it's okay with all of you, I will share.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you wanted to share screen, Luca, get some visuals up there to help us engage this specific point, feel free to do so. Great debate so far. Lots of kind words in the chat, and quite a large chat tonight with tons of fantastic questions. Okay, Luca, your screen is shared. Go ahead.
Okay. So my point is still standing. First of all, this is the paper. It's very important. Inside the paper, you can find other example of this kind of evolution. This example is not the only one. It's very important to remember that. So, Kent, on our discussion, we were discussing about this specific example. As you see, you point out in the debate on two different problems. First of all, it was devolution, so a trait previously lost and now reacquired. But if it's the case, I cannot understand why we have at least 3 different examples of this example of evolution. As all of you can see, we have 3 different instances with different way to reproduce and with different dimension of the clusters. So that's a different mutation each time. So it cannot be a case of devolution and then reacquiring the trait. Also, on the other point, that's not one of was devolution, and the other one, it's not real multicellularity. But these organisms are like that, and as all of you can see, those are cluster of cells, so multicellular organisms are like that for 7 years or so without any predators. So I want to know your thought about these kind of things.
Okay, thank you for that, Luca. Let's hand it back to Kent. And Kent, feel free to take your time. Go ahead.
Well, this is not the topic tonight. We can talk about going from single cell to multicellularity is obviously a major step that you guys have to overcome, okay? Because that's what your religion teaches, that it happened. Well, we did a whole series on, or a whole hour-long program on that on our channel about 3 weeks ago about what really happened with that experiment about going from unicellular to multicellular. But that's off topic from the debate tonight. So I think in a court of law, anybody would say, objection, that's not what we're discussing. Is that evidence for macroevolution? Are you saying that's your best evidence that a frog is related to a pine tree? That a frog has ever produced a non-frog? There's 7,371 species of frogs now. Might have had a common ancestor called a frog. But you believe it was an amoeba. That's why I just simply keep pointing out, and you guys refuse to either see it or refuse to admit it. It's a religion that you have. You believe you're related to wheat. Show me how this happens. It doesn't go. Multicellularity is a different argument for a different night. Donnie, schedule a whole new debate just on that one if they would like to. But let's stick on topic. Where is the evidence? You make these family trees and want all the kids to be taught this stuff. You believe you're related to a ladybug. Why? Why would you believe such a thing? Where's the scientific evidence? My point is, I don't care if you believe believe all you want. It's not science. It's a religion. And I'll continue to say that. But you want that to be taught to the kids. We all came from a common ancestor of primitive unicellular organisms. No traces of those events remain. There aren't any, it didn't happen. There's no evidence for this. But they make these trees and want to call it science, and it's not science, it's nonsense. So, Donnie, I don't think they presented any evidence for macroevolution. If you want to go on to audience questions, I'm game, unless they keep wanting to change this subject to something else. Where's the evidence for macroevolution? So far, haven't seen any, except they believe it happened.
Luca? Yeah, Luca, you just got to make sure to unmute.
Do you want to make a quick response? Okay.
Sure.
Yes. Second, if you want to talk about multicellularity and things like that another night, okay, we can talk about what we were discussing. So the whole topic about the difference between ring DNA and the chromosomes and structure like that, why it's important, why it's a proof of evolution, if you want to. Because I think that in your response, you were quite off topic, because my point was completely different. My point is that when we see things like mitochondria and structure like that, we see a lot of similarity with prokaryotes, so bacteria basically. And that's quite important because we basically can show the process which lead to that kind of evolution. And I will leave to James because it's quite a while and he needs to make his point.
Right. Well, I mean, of course, we presented evidence for macroevolution. It's just that Kent doesn't recognize any of it as evidence, and that's on him. But the people who actually know what they're talking about, they see clearly that this is evidence. But I mean, to his credit, he admits he has a bias. He's going to reject it no matter what and try to find a reason to discredit it. But the people who have actually studied the subject, who know what they're talking about, say that this is evidence, and he has a right to disagree with that, but is it reasonable? Is it rational? I don't think so. And the evidence that we pointed out that I accept that he rejects it, but the record of life on Earth that we have through the fossil record is pretty unmistakable. The story that the rocks are telling us, and I realize he's got his flood story, his flood mythology to explain it, but they don't see any evidence of that throughout the fossil record. They don't see any evidence of a worldwide flood. We do see evidence of an iridium layer worldwide, but he's going to tell you that was from a meteor crashing into the ice dome. But yeah, we do have these layers all over the world. It's not the age of the the molecules that were created probably in a supernova billions of years ago. Nobody cares about the age of the molecules themselves. It's when the layer was laid down, when it was in contact with the atmosphere that we're talking about. So that's why they date the layers. That's how they look at when the layer was laid down. And you can be pretty sure that an organism died if it's in a layer when that layer was laid down. They existed at the same time. And no, he has his claims for a young Earth. We've refuted; those have all been refuted. I'd love to have a debate on that, but we have presented evidence. Everything Luca's presented is evidence for evolution. The evidence that organisms are related is crucial. It's pivotal to evolution that these organisms be related. And if we are related, then just like you're descended from your parents, that we share common ancestors with these other organisms. So it is absolutely linked to the theory of evolution. But I mean, don't ask us, ask a biologist, ask the people who have PhDs and have studied this for years. It's not just lines on paper. It's the knowledge, the evidence, the research that has gone into validating why these really smart people have drawn those lines there. The lines are not the evidence. The evidence is the data and that has been collected. And we realize that he and his ilk just want to hand wave it away so they can cling to their Bronze Age fables. But that's not the job of science. That's the job of religion. So.
Okay, let's do this. Gentlemen, Kent will give you as much time as you need to respond to any of those points. And then what we'll do is start working towards closing statements, quick closing statements after this response, of course. And then we'll have lots of time for some really good audience questions. So Kent, go ahead with a response.
Got a lot.
Okay, James, several times James has said, I have a bias against it, so I reject the evidence. I haven't seen any evidence. You said you presented evidence tonight. What? Mitochondrial similarity? Again, that's proof of a common designer, or at least both sides could argue that as evidence for their side. The similarity of DNA, you could argue that's evidence for evolution. I can argue it's evidence for common creator. It's not proof of either one, but it's certainly not proof of evolution. I don't reject the evidence. You're the one that's got the bias. You very badly want the Bible to not be true. You do a whole series on your channel about things wrong with the Bible and how the Bible isn't true, why we should reject the Bible. You've got the bias, James. You said there's a fossil record. You're still going to stick with that. You say the layers are different ages. James, all over the world, petrified trees are found standing up, running through all these layers. Hundreds and hundreds of these have been found. We had visitors this week from Tennessee. There's a place in central Tennessee where there are dozens of petrified trees standing up, running through all these layers that you guys claim are different ages. Do you reject that evidence? Do you have a bias against that? How could you explain petrified trees in the standing position, connecting all the layers that you claim are different ages? How long do dead trees stand around where you live? Here, 4 or 5 years is about it. They're going to fall over. It's not just an isolated case, not just a localized event. Hundreds of these. There's a coal mine in central Alabama up north of us here where they find dozens of petrified trees. There's a website, Don McDonald, Troy State University, did a lot of research there. He said, look, they run through 2 different seams of coal. Same tree. Coming out of a seam of coal, running through a bunch of dirt, or layers of rock, and going to another seam of coal. Got pictures of them. Look at this. They can do the Mary Lee Creek, the Blue Creek Formation coal mining up there. Dig out of those 2 formations. You take sample A, B, C, D, and do the obvious deduction. Sample H runs through the Mary Lee Formation. Down below that. Well, sample A runs through the Blue Creek Formation and goes up above it. I think anybody with a kindergarten IQ would say, they go through the similar layer. They had to form quickly before the tree could rot. Duh. Yeah. Yellowstone National Park has a Specimen Ridge, 27 consecutive layers with trees standing up, parts of trees, running through different layers. Here's a 30-foot petrified tree in Kettle Coal Mine in Cookeville, Tennessee. The top is and bottom are in different seams of coal. Do you reject that evidence out of hand? The Bible says there was a flood and there would be fools in the last days who would reject the idea of the flood, the creation, the flood, and the coming judgment. Scoffers. Put yourself in that category, James. You're a scoffer. You don't like the Bible to be true, but the evidence shows clearly, if you're non-biased, all over Joggins, Nova Scotia, petrified trees in the standing position. Hundreds of them. This is worldwide. Don't tell me and don't tell anybody else those layers are different ages by millions of years. You are dreaming. You're trying to rescue your dumb religion by lying about the evidence or misinterpreting the evidence. Petrified trees standing up, connecting all the layers, I think are pretty clear evidence the layers are not different ages. Stop telling people that. The layers all formed rapidly like Noah's flood would do. So I'm sorry, you're wrong. You're the one with a bias, and you're the one rejecting the evidence when it's right in front of you. Petrified trees connecting the layers. And you're going to tell people this is a localized event. Well, how come it's localized in all over the world? Happened dozens of places. Anyway, so I think you're simply mistaken, and you're trying to rescue your religion from the obvious truth. It didn't happen. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Luca, go ahead.
Okay, so I find this kind of response very fascinating because I tried so hard to give evidence. Just think about the one about ring DNA and things like that. If you think about it, we have structure inside the cell that they are basically bacteria inside the cell. And we have a different kind of DNA. Ring DNA is different from nuclear DNA. It's a different structure completely, more simple, a different form, all things like that. We have a structure that's basically a bacteria inside the cell. We can tell how it got there. Yeah, because we observed it on a salamander. So we have a mechanism, we have a bunch of proof for that, the composition of the membrane, the composition of the DNA inside the mitochondria or chloroplast, and you will think that's a theory, that's a scientific fact. It's not. It's still treated as an hypothesis. Just think about it. All those evidence that I listed and still is not a fact. Just think how many evidence there are for evolution. And on other things, I think that I would love to talk and discuss about those topics more and in more detail. And I leave to James.
And gentlemen, let me jump in real quick because I do want to make sure we have enough time for some of these questions. So we might want to make this the last back and forth response. So James, let's have you add a few things, try and wrap it up quickly. Then we'll give Kent,
and then open
and then closing
after.
statements. Sure,
Okay.
That sounds great. Go ahead.
That's fine. So yeah, I want to say I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare for the debate. It was a little last minute, so I'm just trying to go off Kent's responses and guide my and do what I can do to help Luca out. This is really what he's prepared for. So, but yeah, it's great to be here. So Kent, he went back to his petrified trees. I mean, the world is billions of years old. Life's been here for billions of years. You don't think there's been local floods pretty much over every square inch of the Earth's surface multiple times, probably hundreds or thousands of times in all that time? We're not limited to just 6,000 years. Like I say, we do have the time, and we do have the time. And I mean, he's been pointed this out to before. I mean, it's almost as compelling as his evidence of petrified clams. Now, if I told you those clams were in the closed position, that would just blow evolution out of the water, right? I mean, petrified clams in the closed position, how could that ever happen in 2 billion years? I mean, it's obviously it's got to be a flood. I mean, let's just throw out all of modern science because we've got some clams that are fossilized closed. It's really not anything that is any amount of trouble for science. All this is well understood, and he can't really attack the big picture. He's got to attack the little pieces. And he brings up Specimen Ridge. I don't know why he does that, because you've got 27 layers of forest separated by volcanic ash. It's obvious that it's 27 volcanic eruptions, and that takes a lot of time. You've got tens of thousands of years minimum at Specimen Ridge. Minimum, realistically, more like millions of years of history at Specimen Ridge. I don't know why he brings it up. It is really not a. It's really, the well is kind of dry on that one for him, but I want to move into. Let's just let Kent respond, and we can move on to closings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, James. Let's do this, gentlemen, just so everybody feels like they've got enough time to respond to the points. Since the evolutionist side started the discussion, Kent, let's give you the final response or word on the discussion, and then whatever you'd like to respond to, James and Luca, save it for your 5-minute concluding statement. Kent will get 5 minutes for a concluding statement and then some audience questions. So, Kent, go ahead with a final response in the discussion.
Well, it's real obvious why James doesn't like me to bring up the polystrata fossils, and his answer is, wow, lots of local floods over millions of years. In any court of law, I think an honest judge would say, this could just as easily all have happened in one big flood, like the Bible teaches. But I'm not asking everybody to pay for the Bible to be taught in the schools. You guys are asking for your evolution religion to be taught. You're demanding that it be taught. It's true, there are petrified fossils all over the world, petrified trees standing up. And your answer is, lots of different localized floods over millions of years. I understand that's what you believe. I believe it was one big flood that did it all at the same time. How could you prove which one is right? I don't think it's possible to prove which one is right. But you want yours to be taught as if it's the only option. Or do you think the students should even be considered? Should we present to the students, hey kids, there's another option. Maybe one flood did all these, since they're found in Canada, in France, in Germany, in Tennessee, in Texas. Maybe one flood did it all. Oh, would you say that would be fair to present that as an option? Should kids be taught? Maybe there's 2 ways to look at this. Or do you want only your way to look at it to be taught at taxpayer expense? I think it's pretty obvious. Call Ian Juby. He's done more research on this than anybody I know. IanJuby.org. He's a Canadian creationist who does a lot of research on the petrified trees, lots of pictures of them. And if you wish to believe it's a whole bunch of local floods, you can believe that, but that's not science. A real scientist would say, hey, there's 4 or 5 theories. Let's explore all the different theories. How could this happen? How rapidly would those layers have to form for the tree to still be there? I think pretty rapidly, teacher. The layers would have to form quickly. Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. So your whole religion is based on the idea. Your Bible is the geologic column, and it doesn't exist. It wasn't even made up till the 1830s. That's when they wrote your Bible about the geologic column. There's no such thing as a Jurassic period or Triassic or Mississippian. The whole thing is baloney. And I know you get angry when I attack your Bible, like you attack my Bible freely, don't you, James? Yeah, you do whole programs on it. You don't mind attacking my Bible. Well, I'm going to do whole programs attacking yours. Your Bible is the geologic column, and it doesn't exist anywhere. It's fiction. It's true the earth has layers, and those layers represent the flood of Noah. And that represents the judgment of God. And you are running from that concept. You won't even consider it. What did you say I do? Oh, have a bias to reject it. You have a bias to reject Genesis flood, don't you, James? I'm done. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Kent. And thank you to the debaters for a fantastic, very enjoyable back and forth discussion. Lots of great and interesting points discussed. Time has flown by. We have a fantastic chat in terms of the live audience tonight as well, with just about 200 questions. So what we're going to do, guys, quick closing statements from both sides to give you the opportunity to wrap up your thoughts and points. Let's start, obviously, with Luca and James.
Do you want to go first, Luca, or do you want to clean it up?
It's more than fine with me. I can start end my argument and then leave
All right,
you with
go ahead, Luca. That's
your
good.
conclusion. Yeah. So I think that was quite a fun debate. I tried really, really hard to give some very good example. I think that some are quite good. The one with the mitochondria, things like that, it's a very good argument, and I want to discuss it in another occasion. It will be good. On Ken points, I failed to see the connection between the flood with evolution. Of course, the flood is another can of worms, let's say, but On evolution, geology, not really my point. For what I can tell, those layers are made by mud, and mud can build up quite rapidly, even in centuries. It's not a problem. A tree can stand for that time. But I would love to have had a more streamlined discussion. I think that we went in a lot of places tonight. I would love to be more focused on my debates, but it was quite fun, and I pass the word to James.
Okay, thank you, Luca. Let me stop the timer. You have just over 3 minutes, roughly, James. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
I have 3 minutes left, or okay.
A little bit over 3 minutes. Take your time.
All right. Well, I mean, can't cover a lot of points, and that's fine because we're not afraid of any of them. You know, he talked about DNA, and he thinks it's magical. Well, I mean, what's going on with DNA? DNA, what is it fundamentally? It's a chemical. Obeying the laws of physics, just like everything else does. What is going on inside the cell? The same thing that goes on outside the cell, the same thing that goes on everywhere. In fact, it's the only thing that ever happens. We've never seen anything else happen other than matter and energy obeying the laws of physics. That's it. Nothing else ever happens. So what's going on in there is the only thing that can go on, because nothing else could go on, because you would need different laws of physics, and we don't have that. He's going, where did the laws of physics come from? He can hypothesize his magical deity for that, but there's still no evidence for that. And yeah, let's see. Well, in the debate with Atheist Jr. pointed out the ring species, and he zoomed in real close on the evolutionary tree of life. And Kent was okay with it. He's okay, speciation happens, but as soon as you start jumping up a couple levels, whoa, that's where the problem is. But when you look at the tree, all you really see is life diversifying, life continuing to branch out and diversify. And he's fine with that. It's just when you start questioning his mythology that he starts to have a problem with it. I would just ask him, he thinks DNA is designed. It's an amazing program. The human DNA, we have the ability to synthesize vitamin C in our cells, but it's turned off. We can't do it. We get scurvy and die if we don't get vitamin C, but yet the code is in there. So you could say, well, why is it deactivated? Well, his explanation is, well, a woman ate fruit from the wrong tree, so God intelligently redesigned human DNA so he could inflict death, destruction, and punishment on people for that crime, which they were not culpable because they didn't even know right from wrong. But so he could rain death and destruction down, whereas we would say, well, as humans, ancestors began to eat more plant matter, we didn't need the vitamin C, so to synthesize it was redundant. It could be shut off without being detrimental to the species. Which answer sounds more like science, and which one sounds more like mythology? And he likes to talk about his common designer, and his flood, but the flood hypothesis requires there to be a magical deity doing all these magical things that we can't happen. We have no evidence for that. We haven't seen that. In absence of evidence for it, we have to assume that natural processes, which is what we see, it's all we see, are the dominant factor that has shaped the geology and history of life on Earth. That's all we've ever seen. We've never seen anything else. Long ago and far away, his God came down and did stuff. He just doesn't do that anymore because he just decided he's not going to do that in a time where there's evidence and, people could ask questions about it. But he used to do it all the time. He just doesn't like to do that anymore. And the geologic column, he says that formed in the 1830s. And ironically enough, that's just about the time when you could start to question the Bible without being liable to be executed by religious leaders for questioning the Bible. Funny, as soon as you were allowed to ask questions, we started asking questions, and the answers we got were not good for the Bible. So thank you.
Okay, Luca and James, thank you for those concluding statements. 5 minutes and 20 seconds to be exact. We will give Kent equal time, and then we're going to jump into some of these audience questions. Kent, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours for a concluding statement.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed that very much. I Curious why James has a hard time looking at the camera all over the place, but you watch the video if you see for yourself. Anyway, the Bible says, the fool said in his heart, there's no God. I believe there had to be a God to design it. You're going to die one day, James and Luca and me and everybody. You're going to die. That's for sure. Where are you going? You sure you're right? Okay, maybe you're fine. I ask people, if you died today, where would you go? God would like you to come to heaven. I believe God had to design the world. It's too complex otherwise. God made the world. He owns it, and he makes the rules. And we're guilty of breaking the rules, and you don't like those rules. Like, thou shalt not bear false witness. Don't lie. Don't steal. God's going to judge the wicked. He says he will. We're going to be punished, or you need to find a substitute. And Jesus Christ is willing and able. He substituted for my sins, and I'm going to heaven. So if you're going to die, where are you going? So here's a couple things James brought up. DNA obeys the laws of physics. Who made the laws of physics? I taught physical science for 15 years. I think I can do pretty good on that if you'd like to debate that topic. Where did gravity come from? Who made the law of gravity? Give me a jar of gravity and paint it red. What exactly is gravity? Where did time come from? Why is it only one directional? We can't go back. There's been a lot of times I wished I could go back just 5 seconds to undo the dumb thing I just did, okay? Why can't we go back in time? You can imagine going back in time billions of years, but you can't really go back in time 2 seconds, can you? Nobody can. You just imagine going back in time. So the DNA, you said, is simply obeying the laws of physics. Who made the laws? The DNA is made out of material, matter. Who created the matter? Do you think all the matter, all the energy, and all the time fit into a dot of nothing and it rapidly expanded faster than the speed of light? That's your theory? That's a religion. And you said speciation happens. I agree. There are now 8 species of bears. They had a common ancestor called a bear. That's microevolution. That's as far as it goes. Everything else is religion. You see 8 species of bears and think bears are related to pine trees because they drew a line on paper. I agree. I will always agree. They will bring forth after their kind, and there are varieties of the kind. There's 1,000 kinds of banana. Might have had a common ancestor. I don't know. I don't care. But it was a banana. That doesn't prove bananas are related to bears. You cannot go back in time and imagine that bears and bananas have a common ancestor, but you guys do, and you want to call it science. You said, I don't question his mythology. You're the ones with the mythology. You're the ones with the wild imagination that everything has a common ancestor. This is simply not science. These whole family trees they draw in the textbooks are religion. You say these lines are based on evidence. Well, that's what you're supposed to show tonight. Where's the evidence that you're related to a ladybug? You claimed you were last time, James. Show me if similar DNA proves a relationship. Couldn't it prove the same guy wrote the code? You know, ladybugs have to move their legs, and you got to move your legs. I bet there's some similarities in the code to run the muscles to move the legs. Yeah. Of course, that's just as much evidence of a common designer. You want to claim the only way to look at it is common ancestor, and you want everybody to pay for that to be taught. That's silly. You have the mythology that you want everybody to pay for, and you won't admit it. You'll never see it. You said yourself, long ago and far away, oh yeah, evolution happened, but billions of years ago. That's not science. You're the ones got the long ago and far away in your mythology. So I think I've demonstrated my point tonight. There is no observable scientific evidence for evolution. You have to interpret things to fit that theory, but they could just as easily be interpreted another way. You interpret the fossils to fit your theory. I could interpret the fossils to mean, wow, they got buried quickly and there was a flood. I can interpret the petrified tree standing up, wow, there was a big flood. I interpret the finding the petrified clams closed, wow, had to be buried quickly. And they find them all over the world. We have thousands of them here in our museum. So you guys choose to interpret the evidence to fit your mythology. I choose to interpret the evidence to fit the Bible. We both have a religion. Let's be happy. You go teach yours, I'll go teach mine. No, you want me to pay for yours to be taught too, don't you? Because nobody would believe that dumb religion if it wasn't forced down every kid's throat from the time they're 4 years old. So, purpose of the debate tonight was, where's the evidence for evolution? Is there reasonable evidence for evolution, macroevolution? No, I win. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. 5 minutes on the dot. Thank you to everybody who participated tonight in this debate. Again, very engaging. I appreciate you gentlemen making it easy to moderate. So let's get
Can I make a
into.
quick response to Kent, because he asked about, I guess he doesn't like the way I'm looking at the camera. Really quickly, I'll just let him know that about 10 years ago, I had a spinal cord tumor removed, and it did lots of damage to the spine. I still have a spinal fluid leak, and that affects a lot of my coordination and balance at times. So it does cause me some difficulties. So he wanted to know. So there you go.
All right. Well, thank you. And again, appreciate the cordial and sophisticated debate, my types of debate. So here we go. First question comes in. Tanya Brown, all the way at the beginning. And let me put a timer on the Q&A period before I forget. And we'll get through as many as we can. This should be fun. So as we typically do, gentlemen, whoever the question is for, in this circumstance, we have the evolutionist side consisting of two, and then obviously Kent in the creationist position. So whoever the question is for, we'll make sure they get the last word, and you guys can kind of work it out however you'd like to in terms of who wants to answer these questions, a little bit of both, or even just one person. So Tanya Brown has a question for, I believe it's you, you guys, the evolutionist side. So she asks, didn't the authors say, so it looks like this is pertaining to the multicellularity paper with the algae, I believe it is. Didn't the authors say multicellularity likely came from plasticity in already existing DNA? Therefore, isn't it demonstrating selection and not evolution? Gentlemen, go ahead.
Okay, so we are talking about something that can be passed on to next generation. So it's not like epigenetic or things like that. We are talking about a trait evolved in that population. And as I said, it's not even a single event, because we are talking about at least 2 or 3 different events. So no, well, when people talk about already existing DNA, what do you want? Mutation are rearranging for the most part. Then you can have inclusion or duplication, things like that. But you have to start from somewhere. It's not like something will appear from nothing. So that's evolution by the book, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Luca. Kent, over to you for response.
Well, thank you, sir. All of the slides, we did a whole program on this very topic, single cell to multi-cell, which, by the way, is a tiny step out of trillions of steps to change a rock to a human. So it's a tiny step. Matt and I answered that very thoroughly, but I think it's all on Matt's computer. I've only got a few of the slides here. Let's do a whole debate just on that one. Sci-fi. Why did single cells start to cooperate? Major evolutionary transitions. This is a major step, one of thousands and actually millions of steps you'd have to take. Genes to genomes. The major advances in evolution happened long ago and far away, boys and girls. It's a fairy tale, okay? It's not seen. We don't observe it. How many cells in the smallest multicellular organism? Wow. Trichoplex is comprised of a few thousand cells. That's the smallest multicellular organism, a few thousand cells. And each of those cells is more complicated than the space shuttle. Each one. And they cooperate. We could talk, let's do a whole debate just on that one. And this, keep in mind, in the bigger picture, this is a tiny step going from single cell. How do you get from non-living material to a single cell? That's the big step. Going from single cell to multi-cell is another giant step, but getting from non-life to single cell is, they've never answered that one. And then they just imagine that it happened. This can all be answered. We'll do it again. I'll get all my slides from Matt, and I'll be ready for next debate, okay? I think, so her question, the authors did say it's likely already existing in the DNA, the ability to do this. And so it was natural selection. It selected something already available. If I went to the store to select tires, I could select the tires they have available, but I can't select the ones they don't have available. So there's nothing evolved in this experiment. It only selected something that already existed. The question, Tanya, you are correct. There's no evidence for evolution at all.
Okay, thank you, Kent. And to be fair, to the evolutionist side, question was directed at you guys. So you get the last word.
Right. Well, I mean, it's all a process of evolution that we see. It's one step, but it's one important step. And the fact is that we do have evidence for it. We do have evidence for multicellularity evolving today. If it can happen today, it could happen in the past. And that's what we see. We have no reason to think anything in the past happened different than it happens today. That's called uniformitarianism. I know he doesn't like that, but that is a scientific principle that science observes because it works. It gives us right answers. We don't assume that things in the past happened differently. And if life can form, if a cell can form just by physics, matter, and energy, with no need for magic. You look inside the cell, there's nothing magical happening in there at all. It's all physics. Why would we then assume that, oh, well, you had to have magic to get it started, not natural processes? But we don't fully understand those natural processes. We all admit that, but we still have no evidence to think that it is a magical designer rather than what we see all around us every day. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you for the responses from the both of you. Good question. Since there's been a lot of discussion on this topic, I guess now is a good time to give this upcoming debate a shout out in October. Jamie from the Studio 215 official channel, I believe was on Kent's channel talking about this issue just a couple weeks ago. And Taylor, Snake was right. So there'll be a technical debate on this exact topic in a few weeks. Cladomonas, single cell to multi-cell evolution. So stay tuned for that one. Definitely should be fun. So here we go. Next question that comes in. This one's now for Kent. So Kent, this comes in from Cool Jesus. And questioner asks, does the horse hoof count as a new feature since it can do new things that a three-toe foot can't do? What about squirrels that develop skin flaps to glide, web toes on otters? So I guess a few questions in one, but Kent, feel free to respond however you'd like to.
Well, obviously, there's a built-in assumption that it evolved. I mean, I think all the horses we've got here have one hoof on each foot. And when they have babies, they have one hoof on each foot. Has anybody ever observed it? How do you know it changed from 1 to 3 or 3 to 1? You drew a line on paper connecting the three-toed and the one-toed. That's not science. It's not evidence. Cattle, I've got horse stuff here somewhere, a horse evolution for 250 recognized breeds of cows. I'm sorry, I'll get it together. I got over probably 48 or 50,000 slides, so it really helps if you ask the questions in the same order that I already have the answers. That would help a lot. Horse evolution. So all anybody's ever seen is horses produce horses with one hoof. If you wish to imagine, SpongeBob style, that it came from a three-toed ungulate, okay, you can believe that if you want, but that's not science. So does the horse hoof count as a new feature since it can do new things that a three-toed foot can't do? Well, you're assuming there's a relationship and it changed from one to the other. There's your problem. You have a false assumption, okay? What about squirrels that develop skin flaps to glide? No. The flying squirrels were created with skin flaps to glide. You're assuming one evolved into the other because you drew lines on paper with the squirrels, didn't you? There are, 37 varieties of squirrels, I believe. We got 8 of them, different stuffed ones up in our museum here. And they might have had a common ancestor called a squirrel. But you're assuming that it developed the skin flaps. You don't know that. All we've ever seen is flying squirrels produce baby flying squirrels. Every time. No exceptions. None. Okay? Web toes on otters. Same thing. We got stuffed otters in our science center. You can come see them for yourself. Yep, you're right. They got web toes. They can swim just fine. So what are you assuming? That they developed that from something else? So you're assuming evolution is true and using what we observe as evidence for your assumption. No, the truth is otters make baby otters every time. And they all have web toes every time. You don't know there's a connection. So the question is invalid. It is assuming evolution happened rather than using it as evidence to demonstrate that it happened. Show me how the three-toed creature turned to a one-toed creature, hoof. Make it happen again. Make these three-toed creatures to produce a hoofed animal again. Do it again in the laboratory. I want to see it. Then it would be science. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kent. Thanks for the good question. Cool Jesus. To the evolutionist side, if you'd like to respond, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yes. Can I start, James? Okay.
Go ahead, Luke. I'll chime in at the end.
Good question, Kent. If we can show that, maybe on dogs, dogs have a very little toe behind their foot, and it's basically useless. Or let's look at the emu and his basically useless claw. I can give you that for the sake of the discussion, that things like Mesohippus and things like that are not proof for horse evolution, even though I think they are. But we can show those kind of process in the dog, in the emu right now with science. So for me, it's not a problem. It's a process we can observe right now, right here, right now.
Yeah, I mean, Kent's just going to baselessly assert that God just made it that way because God just made it that way, and that's not falsifiable. But we don't assume magic as science. We try to look for naturalistic explanations that make sense, and evolution seems to fit that bill perfectly.
Okay, thank you, Luca and James. Question was for you, Ken, if you wanted a final word.
They have stuffed all sorts of magic into science. Life coming from non-life, how did that happen? Matter coming from nothing, energy coming from nothing. You're the guy stuffing science full of nonsense. I like science. Science is what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Evolution doesn't belong in any science class. Evolution is a religion. You believe it. Your guys are stuffing your nonsense mythology into, you're polluting science. Leave science alone. Go teach evolution in a religious class where kids want to learn it, but it's not science. The biggest horse and the littlest horse in the world have one hoof on each foot. Whoa. No, I'm not trying to use mythology. You guys are, and you're the one mixing science with religion. Evolution's a religion. Get it out of the science textbooks. Got nothing to do with science. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for that final word there, Kent. And here's the next question from Hill Hugger. Thank you so much. $5 super chat. Question for Kent. Why did platypus only end up in southern Australia after the flood?
They like the climate down there. They love it. How the animals spread out after Noah's flood is a minor problem compared to all the animals coming from rocks, which the evolutionists believe. And I showed several times on my channel in the last couple of weeks, you clearly do believe you came from rocks. I used to say rock, and somebody said, oh, it's rocks. Okay, so just to make everybody happy, I have a black one, a white one, and a medium brown one. Okay, so no racial discrimination here. You came from rocks. So getting the platypus to South Australia is minor compared to getting the platypus from rocks. So I think there's a reasonable explanation. If you look at the world without the water on it, all the continents are connected. If you look at just the continental shelf, if you lowered the ocean of 200 feet, which is their 12,000 foot average depth, out of 2,000 feet, take out 100 feet, freeze it, stick it on the North and South Pole, call them polar ice caps that are bigger, which obviously the Earth had bigger ice caps clear down to Kansas City, Missouri. Nobody argues about that. If the ice caps are bigger, the oceans are smaller, lower, which makes the continents bigger. If the continental shelf was exposed, you could walk anywhere on the planet. You could walk to Australia. You can walk between Russia and Alaska, the water's 60 feet deep. All over Indonesia, between Vietnam and Australia, 30 feet of water from here to that wall. Come on. You lower the oceans, everything's connected. It would take hundreds of years for the ice caps to melt back. That would raise the oceans, which is why we have a continental shelf. So I cover on my video number 6 about the flood. I think the flood is the best explanation. The flood, the ice age, the layers of the Grand Canyon, all that fits into one big event called Noah's flood. Okay, we'll do that for another debate. So, Hillhugger, if you'd like to have a discussion just on the platypus, we can do that. I think Answers in Genesis has a long answer on their website about that, answersingenesis.org, because they're from Australia. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the response there, Kent. To the evolutionist side, go ahead if you had a quick response as well.
Yes, as for me, the platypus did not get there from the flood, and I have nothing to say, but it's quite curious, isn't it, that the only place where we find non-placental mammals is Australia. It's something that let you think, don't you think?
Well, it's like creationists, their understanding of ecosystems and life is, of course, very warped. So we know that the platypus can survive in Australia, right? But animals survive where they can survive. How did it actually get to there? Because it would have to survive the entire trip down. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to make it there to get to its ideal climate. And I guess maybe that was magic. Maybe God just made it so that they would have a clear path to Australia. I don't know, but this problem's been brought up to Kent several times, the diversification of animals after the flood. And he went with his response now that he always uses, that he doesn't really have a good answer for it, but he just says that we believe life came from a rock, which we don't, but he keeps asserting that. So that's why he can't explain how you could get two generic cats coming off Noah's Ark, and then within 100, 150 years, you've got them diversified all over the place. Lions, tigers, cheetahs, jaguar, leopards, all within a few hundred years, because we have depictions of those animals in the ancient world. They look like they look today. So God must have specially allowed a very rapid period of evolution for maybe 100, 150 years, and then he took it back to a very slow process where animals basically stay very similar for long periods of time. But yeah, thank you.
Okay, Kent, you get the last word on this question if you'd like it.
Well, how did the platypus get to Australia? They swam. That's how they get pretty much everywhere. The globe here. Take a look at, just type in continental shelf. The water between England and France is only about 100 feet deep. If you lowered the oceans 100 feet out of 12,000, I could calculate the percentage if that would help, but it's not much, okay? Less than 1%. If you lowered the oceans 100 feet, you can walk from France to England, making the English very upset. So I think the animals spread out after the ark, but you guys are masking the much bigger picture. You believe the platypus came from an amoeba and is related to wheat, don't you? Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Kent. And real quick, before I get to the next question, the moderators in the chat, we've got a large chat tonight, almost 300. Just please, for me, don't be timing people out unnecessarily. And I appreciate that. So, okay, here we go. Back to the debate itself, the audience Q&A. Mitchell, $5 super chat. Question for the evolutionist side. If things aren't going back to this gravitational point / Big Bang, why is the universe still expanding and not collapsing? Go ahead.
To be fair, I'm not knowledgeable enough to answer these kind of questions. I think that we need to have the expansion first and then the crunch, for what I can understand. I think that we need to get to the depth of the universe first before we see something different. But I'm a layman on those kind of things. If you talk me about thermodynamics and things like that, maybe I can master an answer. These things way outside of my expertise.
I think I would echo what Lucas said. I'm not a physicist. These are very complicated things that I just can't speak with any degree of authority on. Obviously, they're really smart people who do study the field, who are working on these issues right now. And I just anxiously await to hear from them what they find out about the natural world. But we can be pretty confident that whatever they find, like every single answer they've ever found before this, it'll have a naturalistic explanation. We've never ran into any problem where we needed to invoke magic. He does it quite often. The origin of life, not magical, natural process. He doesn't understand it. We don't understand it, but that's not magic. It is a, as yet, not well understood natural process. It's not the same as magic. And every solution we've ever found has fit that model. And we can be pretty sure, not absolutely certain, but he can hang his hat on that and say, okay, origin of the universe, so that's where we need to bring in the magic. Maybe it is. Only time will tell, but the history's not on his side there.
Okay, thank you for the response. And to be fair, it's not necessarily an on-topic question. So if I could recommend to those who are thinking about sending in super chats, just make sure that the question attached to the super chat, I do appreciate the donation, but if you could just try and make sure it's a question that's as on topic as possible. Kent, of course, over to you if you had any thoughts pertaining to the question. Go ahead.
Okay, I think for nearly 100 years, it's been very thoroughly demonstrated that there is a red shift, which has to do with what's called the Doppler effect. I cover this on my video number 7 of the series Questions and Answer. I agree. All the stars appear to be giving a red shift, which means they probably are moving away from us. It's the Doppler effect. When a train comes toward you, it squeezes the sound waves in, and it drops pitch when it goes by. Light apparently does the same thing. The light waves are stretched. 1910s, 1920s, they did all this research and said, wow, all the stars seem to be moving away from us. I think I would agree that the red shifts indicate movement away. It does not necessarily indicate distance, okay? It indicates they're moving away. Well, the Bible says in Isaiah, God sits on the circle of the earth and he stretched out the heavens. 17 times in the Bible it says God stretched out the heavens. So maybe they were having a red shift because it's stretching out the heavens. It depends when you observe the star. Are we spinning toward it or spinning away from it? That adds whatever your latitude is. In Lenox, Alabama, 886 miles an hour adds or subtracts from that distance, from that thing. But if the star is coming toward us, it would give a blue shift. The star going away from us would give a red shift. Everybody's asking, how did the light get from the star to here? Well, the question is, it's a different question. How did the star get from here to there? I believe God made the earth first and then the stars and stretched them out. He says so 17 times in the Bible. I've chosen to believe that. I think that's just as scientific answer as anything else. So I don't think that's magic. I think that's the Creator did it that way. Why does your car have chrome lug nuts? The designer put them on there. That's why. He liked chrome lug nuts, I guess. I don't know. So, but it's magic to say, well, we're going to find an answer one day and it won't include God. You're so determined, James, to get rid of God, aren't you? Okay. We'll see how that works out for you, Judgment Day. But go ahead. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Kent, for that response. The questioner had his question for you guys, the evolutionist side. If you want a quick final word, go ahead.
No, I think that Mark in the chat was making about point about Abel's constant, but I cannot talk about these things. Let's say that the red shift is not the universe expanding, it's just that it's expanding faster as it goes, as I understood from the chart. Not my area of expertise. I am very, very bad at this.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I would have been happy. I was happy as a Christian. I wasn't necessarily thrilled with the idea that there was no God, no afterlife. I came to that conclusion very reluctantly after a period of looking at the evidence and not finding any good reason to believe. No matter how much I like the proposition, there was just no good reason to believe in it. It's not a matter of preference or choice. It's a matter of acknowledging the reality. And what Kevin said about the redshift, I mean, that would be a novel prediction if Christians had been saying for thousands of years that, oh, the universe is expanding. We don't have evidence of it, but we bet when, because the Bible said God stretches out the heavens. And then if we found the redshift, you could say, oh, wow, the Bible predicted that. But what happens is we discover something about reality, like the expanding universe, and then they go back and look through the Bible and see if they can find anything that they can claim kind of matches that. And then basically science does the work, and they just have to find a way to give God the credit for it, piggyback God onto the hard work science has done because of a vague statement in an old book. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, moving on. Next question comes in from Alan. Thank you so much for the super chat support and question. This one is for Kent. How does a tardigrade find its mate? Oh, Kent, let me unmute you real quick before you talk. Okay, you're good to go, brother.
Okay, the tardigrade is incredibly tiny. Okay, it's amazing. They call them water bears or something else. Okay, very, very tiny creature. How it finds its mate, I don't think anybody knows. It doesn't. It has, some of them have eyes. Maybe they can see in their little tiny world. They're only a millimeter long. I covered this making babies in my last Friday, I think, Bible study on YouTube, Kent Hovind Official. So it could possibly be by smell. There's a tardigrade next to a cube of salt. You know, shake some salt out of your salt shaker. That's how big they are. Very tiny. They're just amazingly designed. Anybody that thinks the tardigrade, or any animal for that matter, happened by chance, I think needs some serious psychological help. It had to be designed. They can tear open a cell of a moss plant and suck the juice out. That's what they live off of. They have claws. They have muscles to control those claws. And I marvel that anybody can believe the tardigrade, or any animal for that matter, came from an amoeba, which came from a dot of nothing exploding. Came from a rocks, I'm sorry, plural. So I don't know that anybody knows. We talked about tardigrades mating, which has just recently been observed finally, after 300 years of knowing about tardigrades. They finally got a video, and the male latches around her head and releases the sperm, and it goes in under her neck. I'd like a step-by-step explanation, logical, scientific explanation of how this happened. And by the way, the red shift was discovered in the 1920s, and the Bible was written way before that. So don't make a prediction. Come on now, James, you can do better than that. The Bible said it 17 times. It was discovered 2,000 years later. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Kent. James, Luca, floor is yours.
Yes, I think that they can just see or have some other sensories apparatus to find their mate. But what I think it's really, really funny that something like the tardigrade is basically immortal. You cannot kill that thing even if you throw in space. It's incredible. And you know the funny thing, how much they live? A couple of years. You created the Wolverine of the nature, and they will die in a couple of years. They can stay in suspension for a very, very long time, but de facto they live just a couple of years. Just think about it, how good that design is. You design a immortal thing that dies in a couple of years. It's incredible.
Okay, Kent, you can have the final words. Or James, I saw you on mute if you want to make it quick. Since we are very close to the 2-hour round,
Yeah,
guys,
that's
let's be
fine.
real quick.
He's just going to assert the tardigrade is amazing. It was designed by God. That's not falsifiable, but let him do it.
And James will just say it happened by chance. So nobody made it. Nobody made that. Nobody made that. I can't believe you can believe that. But anyway, that's all I got on the tardigrade. Watch my video last Friday night, Kent Hovind Official, on my YouTube channel. Tardigrades make baby. Tardigrades. Whoa, who'd have thunk it? Every time.
Not safe for children.
Okay. As we start to wind it down here, I've got endless questions. We got to wrap it up eventually, guys. I want to be cognizant of your time. I do appreciate all of your time for tonight's definitely very entertaining debate. So Patty Smith, $10 super chat, question for J and L. So Luca and James, why can you take 20 years and put some resistance on yeast and see if they will grow a flagellum type propeller system or even the start of a functional tail? Overall, just a question about evolutionary novelty, perhaps, but feel free to respond however you'd like to.
That's actually a very good idea. Why we cannot do that? We can. And if something like that will be ever be made, you will be convinced about evolution, because it's how science works. Just think what I show on multicellularity, and we have a lot of experience, very very good ones like that. I do not think that this particular one is already in existence, but maybe we will see something like that in the future. It's a very good example of a viable experiment, I think.
Yeah, I would just say real quickly. I mean, this is kind of like what Ken sometimes says about, oh, why don't rabbits evolve wings because so they could fly away from the predators? Well, evolution can only work with what it has. It can't just evolve things that out of nothing. Uh, each piece is a an addition to what was already there, and evolution has different ways of solving problems. Rabbits don't need to fly because they have lots of babies, so it doesn't matter how many the wolves eat; they can just keep popping out more of them, and the species will propagate. Evolution, it's an unguided process. It doesn't really care. It's just a force of nature. It is a reality. It's physics acting on matter and energy. It's a law of nature.
Okay, and Kent, over to you if you had a response.
He keeps evoking these laws. Who made the laws? Why is that a law? And evolution has different ways of solving things. So you're giving evolution some intelligence then. Okay, personification. Okay, as far as the flagellum, that's the little hair that drives many different microscopic single-cell creatures through their little world. Okay, the flagella, the little hair, can spin up to 1,000 revolutions per second. It's spinning because it's attached to a little motor, like a rotary engine. That's phenomenal. Has a little hook that allows it to bend and flex back and forth. They steer with this thing. Been a lot of study done on the flagella rotary motor that turns 60,000 RPM. That little motor has to seal against the skin of this little creature. It's phenomenal. And it can spin 60,000 RPM, make the little critter swim. 8,000 of these motors would fit on a period on a page. 8,000 of these little tiny motors. You guys think it happened by chance. And they can stop in a quarter turn and reverse and spin the other way and pull the creature backwards. It's about like a person swimming through peanut butter at 60 miles an hour because the viscosity ratio changes as the creature gets smaller, the viscosity of the liquid feels greater. So it's harder to swim through their world than it is for us. So we had a model of the little flagellum motor in our. If you think it happened by chance, you're insane, certifiably insane. Humans probably evolved from bacteria. The bacteria can swim 60 miles an hour through peanut butter. Sign them up for the Olympics. If we evolve from them, we're getting worse, not better. I'm 6'1", 15 body lengths per second. Me swimming 62 miles an hour. E. coli can swim 15 body lengths per second. And it's not swimming through air either, it's swimming through the fluid, that's viscosity level. Anyway, we cover all that on my video series. For those who'd like to see it, Creation Science Evangelism, get the seminar series on drdino.com. We want to help strengthen your faith in the Word of God, not destroy your faith in the Word of God. Go ahead.
Okay, Luca, James, quick final word. And I think we're going to have to make that the last question because we are over the 2-hour mark. So I want to respect all of the debate.
It's a very good thing. First of all, we did see irreducible complex things evolving, and that rotor is made by proteins. It look very very impressive, but we need to remember those are chemical compounds interacting with the already known laws. It's nothing supernatural back then. So back there, so it can be observed something like that evolving. I think that eventually we will, and we will see.
Well, Ken was asking about the laws. There's no lawgiver. They're just observations we see about the natural world. When we see something happen over and over and over again, we never see it violated. We can begin to form an assumption that is a fundamental law of the universe. It's not prescribing, it's describing how things seem to work from our vantage point. It doesn't mean we won't discover something else in the future, but we can say as far as we've gone now, we've never seen anything to the contrary. He's asking why humans don't move. Like, humans don't need to swim through peanut butter. We are just fine the way we are. We don't, evolution's not pushing us in that direction. Evolution is just about making the next generation just a little bit more fit, a little bit more able to survive. It doesn't care about swimming through peanut butter at any certain speed because we don't need it to live. It's like when he brings up, oh, why would we lose our tail? Because a tail would be kind of useful. Evolution doesn't care about what you think might be useful to have. It's what do you need to survive? What's going to help you be able to pass your genetic material on to the next generation? And like Luca said, the irreducible complexity argument that's been battled around back and forth. There's nothing there. It's been argued in court, a court of law, and the court of law said no, that is not evidence against evolution. It's not evidence for creation. With an honest judge, by the way. He was an honest man. He was a Christian, but he had to objectively look at the evidence before him and say that there's just no evidence for intelligent design. You can ascribe what we see in the natural world to God. You're welcome to do it. It's not falsifiable. We have no reason to do that, but you're welcome to.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, that I'm going to conclude the audience Q&A here because we are over the 2-hour mark. And wow, we got a lot of questions in. So I do want to thank everybody who did send in a question. And I want to apologize ahead of time. If we were to get to every question, we would be here for 10 hours. So time flies by. And this was a fantastic debate. Kent, Luca, James, thanks for doing it. Let's have some quick final words, final thoughts. I do thank you all again for doing this. Tons of fun. Let's start with the evolutionist side. Quick final words, final thoughts. Luca, James?
Yes, it was a pleasure to be there tonight. I did not prepare for this debate. I will be getting up my bed in an hour to go to work, basically. So it was quite fun, and it was a pleasure to debate with James. I hope to do it again, maybe with a little bit more time to prepare. It will be very fun. And Kent, it was a pleasure to debate with you. Third time now, so yeah, it was fun.
Luca, thank you. And I appreciate you sacrificing your sleep to do this debate. 1 hour, and then you have to go into work. I hope you have lots of coffee today. So, Luca, be safe. Thanks again. James W., quick final words, final thoughts, and thanks for doing this.
Well, yeah, thank you, Donnie. I want to thank Luca and Kent. It was a lot of fun. Thank you, Donnie, for bringing me back. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. It was kind of a last-minute thing. I hope, I know some of my arguments kind of trigger Kent a little bit. It really gets his blood flowing, so I hope that didn't detract from a lot of the good points that Luca was trying to make that are more technical about the science and why we know and why scientists feel that they do have good evidence to believe that macroevolution has happened. It's an observable reality. It's what the evidence shows, but it conflicts with some people's religious ideology, and they're welcome to it. You're welcome to your own beliefs, but not your own facts. So thanks, guys. I think we're going to have an after show on the Atheist Junior channel. I think Kent may be somewhat familiar with him, but yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. So thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, James W., for those final thoughts. Definitely always a lot of fun. And Kent, over to you. Thank you so much for doing this debate. This series has been a blast. And final words, final thoughts.
I love these things. I'll do them anytime, James. And my blood pressure is fine. I enjoy it very much. I would share with you guys Pascal's wager, which of course is, if I'm right, you're in trouble. If you're right and there's no God and evolution happened, I haven't lost a thing. I've had wonderful life. I enjoy life. And if I'm wrong, okay, I die and get turned back to worm dust. You mentioned about evolution doesn't need it, so it wouldn't evolve. James, the tardigrade has things that it doesn't need. It can survive a perfect vacuum. It never encounters that. Why did the Israeli space people send tardigrades up into space? Why did they send them to the moon? They can survive freezing, and they can survive temperatures and conditions that they have never encountered. How did they evolve the ability to survive 459 below 0 Fahrenheit? How did they evolve that? It never occurs on Earth. So, yeah, you're simply mistaken, okay? You need to study the tardigrade. Watch my video from a couple nights ago, tardigrade, where I give all the stuff that they can do, which will blow your mind. I got it in here somewhere. But the things that they can handle that they never encountered. Why would they evolve the ability to survive 300 degrees? They've never encountered that. Anyway, so yeah, I think God made everything. I want to give God the glory for everything he made. I love talking to my Heavenly Father. I love being part of his family. I'd like you guys to get in the family before it's too late. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kent, for those final words. To the debaters, again, thank you so much. To the live chat, thank you for all of the engagement and questions, super chat support, all the good stuff. So with that being said, Stand for Truth is going to at least let these debaters out, and I will stick around as usual for a couple minutes going over announcements, reminders, so on and so forth. Okay, God bless all. All right, I am back. Wow, 2 hours, over 2 hours really does fly by, especially with this one. We had so much engagement from you guys in the live chat, and I'm looking at the questions I have saved, and the amount of questions I have saved basically make up probably a good 3-4 debates. So, I do want to apologize, because once we especially hit the 2-hour mark, it's up to me as moderator and host to start winding things down. So, of course, I would love to get through single question, every single super chat. It's just unfortunately not possible. So I do really want to apologize for that. But given how many debates we host, I don't think anybody hosts more debates than us. We've now hosted over 230 debates. Just know that there's going to be plenty of opportunities to send in your questions. And if we miss your question in a particular debate, we'll make sure to get to it in a future debate. So, Alyosha, appreciate that. Lots of fun. I love these 2-on-1 debates. I'd love to get a 3-on-1 actually. So any evolutionists in the chat, anybody in general that wants to, engage in these debates, let me know. Shoot me an email. I'll do my best to set them up. Last week, we just had another debate marathon. We had a ton of debate marathons during the summer, but last week was our first debate marathon basically after the summer. So we had a ton of great debates last week. We started the week with, actually, before I get to that, I do want to thank Alyosha for all of your support, brother. Tons of super chats with some great feedback and comments. So thank you so much for that. And to anybody else who sent in a super chat, not really with a question, just to kind of show your love, give some feedback, pose a comment. I want to thank you for that. So yes, last week we had a ton of epic debates, 4 debates, all different topics. If you haven't yet seen this one, very comprehensive debate on eschatology, pre-trib versus pre-wrath, basically over 3.5 hours. This one went. Me and JD Moran challenged me openly in a YouTube video several months ago. I took up the challenge, and it was a lot of fun, especially because I've been working roughly 8 hours a day behind the scenes on the upcoming book. So the upcoming book right here, End Times Revealed, Dawn of the Antichrist. It's up to 200 pages. Got a professional cover designer for this. I'm very happy with it. basically all the ideas I had for it and offered to the cover designer came to life, manifested just as I expected and wanted to. And that formal debate I did was good and edifying for the writing of this book. So the writing phase of it is almost done. And then I've got a proofreader and editor as well going over it. So it'll be set for a November release. The more support we get from you guys are the life and blood, the more we can basically implement in terms of the ministry, because, you know, ministry costs are not cheap, but the more support we get. So I want to thank everybody, the more we can do, even in terms of our books, because as a ministry, we've released roughly 16 books. But 95% of those have essentially been myself and Matt writing, publishing, proofreading, editing, doing it all. So now it feels really good that we can kind of branch out. These 2 books, you definitely don't want to miss out on them. They are available now at cost, actually, because we want to get these out, especially this one here, new book that I just released, Special Creation, 300 pages, and it's all professionally formatted, reformatted, and it's heavy duty. Basically the most comprehensive book you're going to find, I believe, on the market when it comes to the ancestry debate. So if you're interested or, you know, invested at all in the ancestry debate, I highly recommend picking up the Endogenous Retrovirus book, but especially the Special Creation book, which I'm trying to get real quick, at least on Amazon.com. I'll put it in the live chat. You can't go wrong. It's currently at printing cost. And as I like to point out, I mean, I've got a ton. You can see them around me. There's 3 Endogenous Retrovirus books there, another few Special Creation books behind me. I like to buy them in bulk because, especially with friends, family, church members, what we do here on Standing for Truth is we take so many topics into one, right? Like this one book alone has mitochondrial Eve, Y chromosome Noah, chromosome 2 fusion, ERVs out of Africa. It's a lot of information compiled into one. So it's a fantastic gift. It's a fantastic witnessing tool. It's great basically to just hand out. So we also got the Standing for Truth podcast now released. I believe I believe we're up to 50 episode. James says order limit. Yes, James, you can order up to 100. So I'll let you order up to 100. After that, maybe I'll allow you to order another 100. Okay, so a couple reminders, guys. We got a lot of epic debates coming up. This month is huge in terms of main events. So, you know, typically in general, just anywhere you go, you're going to have a main event once in a while, right? This month alone, we've got 3 or 4 main events. So this one's huge. This is a debate I've wanted to see for a long time. We made it happen. I would say this is up there with the debate we had with Matt Slick and also Dr. Shabir Ali. That was a debate I've wanted to see forever. A couple of my dream debates, you know, I made happen. It was a lot of work, but I'm happy to say I made them happen. They're up on the website. So it was Matt Slick and Dr. Shabir Ali. That's been a debate I've wanted to see for years. We made it happen about a year ago. It was fantastic. Well worth it. The other one was Dr. Bob Wilkin and Dr. Robert Sunjanis on soteriology. That's a debate I wanted to see for years as well. 2 top dogs in the world of soteriology. We made that happen about 4 months ago. That's up on the website. That's up on the in the channel. So anybody new to this channel, you love debates, discussions, lectures, interviews, and more, make sure you're subscribed. We strongly believe here in critical thinking. Okay, obviously we're a creation centered ministry, Christian centered ministry, but we don't want to just be an echo chamber. We want to host debates, discussions, panel discussions. We had a soteriology related panel debate series over the summer. So if you're big into the world of soteriology, you can find an entire series. Each panel, we had up to 10 people. I myself was involved, and just hours and hours each show. So praise I am. Good to see you. Brother, appreciate you modding recently. So yes, this one is now another big kind of dream debate I wanted to see, and we're going to see it. This month is the Trinity necessary to explain reality to top-notch debaters, sophisticated debaters. Jake, the Muslim metaphysician, and Matt Slick. So that's going to be huge as well. Mark Reed, who was in the live chat earlier, he's been making his rounds. He's a great debater on the atheist side. Always brings his A game. Kent Hovind, of course, seasoned debater. He's had over 300 debates. These are two powerhouses in the creation versus evolution world. And I had a lot of people basically pointing out they want to see this round 3 is what it'll be. So we made it happen. Mark Reed and Dr. Dino, same week as Matt Slick and Jake the Muslim metaphysician. So is there reasonable evidence for biological evolution? Chapter 3, Endgame, Clash of the Titans, call it whatever you want. I'm excited for this one. So that's at the end of the month. And also at the end of the month, big Calvinist debate coming up. Again, two seasoned debaters, both very well educated on a lot of topics. Turretin fan, I've had him on many times. Kelly Powers, he's been on here a ton of times as well. Does John 6 teach the Calvinist doctrine of effectual calling? So that's going to take place at the end of the month. So as you can see, we like to mix it up. We've got some creation evolution debates on the nature of God, soteriology related debates. And this one I'm pumped for. This one's been scheduled for a while now. John Crawford, A.K. Richardson, both have been here before in the past. Always make for a good, well-informed debate. Free grace versus lordship, one of my favorite topics to host, moderate, engage in, have panel discussions on. Important topic. So this will be the middle of the month, I believe. And of course, the big one that's been set for about 4 months now, which really shows me just how fast time goes by. Because I remember scheduling this one and I was thrilled when I got it confirmed. And I thought, man, I want to see this debate now. I don't want to have to wait 4 months. And it's like, here we go. 3 days from now. So Robertson Jenis, Steve Christie, the Marian Dogmas debate, Catholic versus Protestant. We've hosted over 230 debates, guys, but I think this is our first really big formal debate on Catholicism. And with Robertson Jenis, who's probably one of the most, if not the most well-known Catholic apologists out there. So Steve Christie, he's had some big debates as well with Trent Horn, for example, from Catholic Answers. So this one is going to be huge. This one's this week. Evolution Debate Challenge series continues as well with Ken Rock and Kent Hovind in 2 days. So that'll be on the 5th. And I just booked several more debates. I just got to get the thumbnails, got to get them. There's a lot to do here, guys. So I do appreciate the support always. Just got to get some thumbnails, get them up on the channel. So I just booked about 3 or 4 more Evolution Debate Challenge series debates. One of them, the return of Jackson Rowe. So that's coming up. The return of Jackson Rowe, Kent versus Jackson. I believe it's the 14th. If I'm not mistaken. So I'll have to check my schedule. That should be up soon, though. They'll be debating, did modern birds evolve from dinosaurs? So that should be interesting. This week as well, another free grace versus lordship debate, Eli Haytov and J.D. Martin. So stay tuned, guys. That's just a snapshot of the overall material, though. I don't want to be here all night boring you guys with reminders and announcements. So just make sure you're subscribed. Share around this content. The truth is important. Critical thinking is important. And I'm always up for suggestions in terms of debates, panel discussions. One thing I'd like to start doing probably after the release of my new book, End Times Theology, Dawn of the Antichrist, first week of November, possibly last week of October. We'll see how things go in the world of proofreading, editing, and publishing. But what I'd like to do is have some panel discussions on eschatology. So anybody who's either, a pre-tribulation rapturist, a post-tribulation rapturist, pre-wrath rapturist, a preterist, whether partial or full, amillennialist, post-millennialist, whatever you are, let me know. And so I can get a list of all the different types of eschatological positions. My book basically addresses all of them, mainly preterism and the pre-tribulation rapturism. But I'd like to have some really solid panel discussions in November, December on that topic too. So I'm looking here at the chat and I see a couple of suggestions. Yahoo, yeah, Hebrew roots related debate would be epic. One we just booked, not on this topic, but just came to mind, is Charles Jennings. So two superstar debaters in this community, CJ Cox and Charles Jennings. So they're going to be debating November 5th, just confirmed, I believe last night, actually, the details at least. So they'll be debating free grace versus lordship. What is true biblical salvation? So I know a lot of people have wanted to see this for a while. Poor Luca. 1 hour sleep. You know what they say, Luca, anywhere between 1 and 8 hours a night is what you need to stay strong and feeling good. So I do appreciate that. So again, yes, Charles Jennings and CJ Cox coming up. And I think we're going to end this year, 2022, as just a massive year for debates. And I'm already starting to schedule into November, December. So if you're interested in debates, you have suggestions, you're a new debater and you want to enter the debate octagon, I can do my best to set you up with an interlocutor. Shoot me an email. Shoot me an email and I'll do my best to set you up. So we did have our conference at the first week of September. So we had 10 events. It was our Defending Genesis conference. So as people have probably noticed, since that conference, we've mainly had just debate after debate after debate. But starting in October again, I've got some more presentations and lectures. We're going to be having a John Mackay, the creation guy, and Joseph Hubbard on here with, of course, our team flood researcher, George Bond. We're going to be talking all things polystrata trees. We're having Sal Jardina coming back on as well, and a few other exciting ones in terms of the world of creation, evolution, presentations, lectures. There's one comment here that made me laugh. The Layman Seminary, appreciate your work, brother. Beat the chart. So yes, I have admittedly stolen, believe it or not, Layman Seminary's liner. So I adopted it. It's now mine because I've copyrighted it. Sorry to break it to you. And I really enjoyed using that in my last debate last week. So and it looks like Praise I Am too. We'll have him back on soon doing a couple slavery debates. And we've also got a couple more Bible translation debates. So Doki Doki, yes, let BioLogos know. I mean, we got so many of these debates. Tonight was our 43rd debate in 1 year in the Evolution Debate Challenge series, okay? Alone, Ken Hovind, I believe, has done, if we go back a couple years, 70 debates here. So, but what I'm not seeing is a lot of these theistic evolutionists not stepping up to take the challenge. Where's BioLogos? Where's Dr. Joel Duff? Where's the uninspiring compromiser? Where are the theistic evolutionists? Bring your best evidence for evolution. Let's debate it. We're having a lot of fun. Again, tonight was episode 43 of the 2022 Evolution Debate Challenge series. Luca and James W., from my understanding, both either agnostic or atheist. I don't want to misrepresent anybody, but rarely what we have are theistic evolutionists. So just makes me wonder how confident they are in their position if they're so unwilling to defend it in a live debate. So yes, let BioLogos know that we've got a challenge going on. And if they believe whales and pine trees are related, then come take the debate challenge. All of those associated with the ministry taking the challenge are myself. Okay, I've done several debates, technical debates on endogenous retroviruses. Obviously, I wrote an entire book on it. Luca Medugno and I just had a technical debate on that. So anybody who wants to debate that topic, of course, I'll do so. Chromosome 2 fusion. We've got Professor David McQueen, who's taking the challenge as well. He'll debate anybody on the age of the earth, the global flood. Obviously, Kent, who's been doing the debate challenge with us. And praise. Yeah, that specific somebody's not taking the challenge. That's for sure. And who else? Matt Matt Man, Raw Matt, goes by many names. He's doing it as well. He's done a couple in the series. He likes to focus on, did man live to 900? So if there's anybody who is anti-biblical longevity, so let's say you're the opposite of the position. Let's say, did man live to 900? And you want to be the deny, person of that debate with Matt as the affirmative. Let me know, and we can set that up. So that'd be fun. Get some debates on that topic. Get Matt involved more. I know he wants to. And T-Rock's part of the camp, the Evolution Debate Challenge Series camp. So myself, T-Rock, Professor David McQueen, Raw Matt, Dr. Dino, and all sorts of topics: evolution, age of the earth, endogenous retroviruses. So Doki, I love it. When you're ready to graduate from keyboard warrior status. Yes, not too fond of keyboard Karens, if I may. Keyboard warriors. I mean, we host so many debates, discussions, panel discussions, open talks. There's really no excuse to be hiding out in the comment section anymore. And I notice, especially on Facebook, I'm in these evolution groups, and I've never seen so many keyboard champions. It's time to step up. Enter the debate octagon. We've had so many debates, and I do always appreciate those that are willing to give their time, whether it's the evolutionist side, the creationist side, anybody who's willing to step into the debate octagon and defend whatever position it may be. I do respect that, and I appreciate the time provided for those debates. So with that being said, that's all that comes to mind. Love you guys in the chat. Appreciate all you do. Thank you to the mods. I know the chat can get a little bit lively, so it's totally understandable. No worries. Things get passionate, and we can all shake hands at the end of the day. So tonight especially was fun. These debates are getting more and more lively. So Karen Weiss, I was waiting for that. Good to see you, sister. Great job in the chat moderating. Doki, as always, brother. Top notch moderator, always posting the relevant link. So if you'd like to support us, keep us going full time, because again, we've gotten to the point now where we can hire a lot of outside work, especially when it comes to publishing our books. That's why the last time I want to mention, get these 2 books, both fully updated, fully reformatted. They look fantastic, really professional. And just, if put it this way, if you have these 2 books in your library, you're set. You're set. You have 2 books that basically cover every single topic in terms of the ancestry debate. And that comprises technical papers on things like molecular clocks from 2022. So it's as updated as it could be. So Oki says our sister Karen is our favorite. Karen. Amen. Our sister Karen is not the keyboard Karen that we're referring to. So saved by grace, brother. Amen. Saved by grace, that's for sure. Good question. Here it is. So End Times Revealed. The title is, just one second so I get rid of this. Dawn of the Antichrist. Coming well. I've been working about 8 hours a day on this. A lot of study, a lot of writing. I'm at 200 pages, so I'm going to start winding it down and just really focus on, the publishing, proofreading, editing phase. And there's just so much that I'll probably do a part 2. But as you can tell by the description in the back, it's going to be heavy on preterism. So I have a lot of books on all things eschatology, even around me in my library here. Tons of books that I've studied. I've studied both sides, all the sides, basically extensively. One thing I've noticed is not a really comprehensive demolishing of preterism in any one of the books, which is fine. A lot of the books are just focusing on, just the pre-trib side or something like that. But this one, I've got a ton on Daniel's 70 weeks, preterism, both partial and full, and I think it's basically going to have one of the most detailed sections on preterism out there. So you're definitely not going to want to miss out on this one, with some really, really solid novel arguments that I think people are going to be blown away over. So as you can see here, what is preterism and is it biblical? Who is the he in Daniel 9:27? This chapter, this section, which is basically the premise, the whole thesis of the book, you know, the revealing of the Antichrist, is the portion that I think is going to blow a lot of people away. Is who is the he in 2 Thessalonians 2:7? So I've had a lot of emails and feedback over people that really enjoyed my episode on that, and how it was like a light bulb going off. They've always been confused on who the he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. You know, some call the restrainer. A lot of people admit that they've been rather kind of confused over it, and a lot of the interpretations they've heard before just didn't work or cut it for them. And they watched my episode on it in the End Times Theology series, episode 1. He who now letteth will let. And I've gotten a lot of feedback emails of people basically just saying, thanks so much. Like it makes sense now. And so I dig deep on that topic, especially the whole chapter dedicated to it. Leave no stone unturned. You're definitely not going to want to miss out on this one. Here we go. Last thing I want to mention, Centurion, thank you so much, says he just ordered a copy. God bless. God bless. I do appreciate that. And reminder, this month as well, Jamie and Taylor, Cladomonas, single cell to multi-cell evolution. There's been so much discussion on that lately in these debates. And now we're going to have an entire debate solely on that topic. So with that being said, guys, thank you for tuning in. Appreciate all the support, question, feedback. Stand for Truth is out. God bless all.